Alright, so basically I wanted to make a video that goes through my Facebook photos because it happens to be a place where I've concentrated a lot of um, material that also records the date that things were posted. And so I realized that going back through it helps me sort of chart what has been happening since the summer of 2011. So basically, why begin at the summer of 2011? Well, that goes back to some material that I was pretty immersed in at the time, which is sort of Bible prophecy from a Jewish or Kabbalistic perspective, looking at prophecies of the rabbis and like people throughout the last millennium or so, interpreting biblical passages and trying to understand how this process of our redemption is unfolding. So, a good place to get sort of an introduction to that whole area, if you're interested, is my blog, which is Kabbalah Astrology. I'll just make this a bit wider. I guess I can't change it now. But in here I sort of go through the basic model of a lot of these prophecies, which is that there were 6 days of creation and they correspond to the 6 millennia of human history. And so we're currently in the 6th millennium, which began in the year 1240. And the way that works is then every 250 years is a different part of the day of that 6th day. So beginning in 1240, 250 years later, the year 1590 was midnight. The year 1740 was dawn. And then the incredibly relevant year of 1990, so just about 24 years ago, was noon on the 6th day. And so what that means is that all of human history, and if you want to connect this to ancient alien theory and a lot of the knowledge about our true origins that's coming out now, this 6,000 year schema doesn't necessarily contradict with those ideas, because many places in Jewish thought it talks about the worlds that existed prior to this period that we're in. So there's some 6,000 year period that we're nearing the end of, and this of course corresponds to the Maya and other cultures who are based on the 26,000 year cycle, the precession of the equinoxes, the Earth's wobble, which then divides into, I believe it's 5 cycles of about 6,000 years each, most of which began sometime in the 4th millennium BCE. So it's actually pretty amazing how this aligns with the Jewish and Christian understanding of the epoch that we're in, which began sometime around 4000 BCE, a little bit later. And each of those 1,000 years corresponds to another day in the biblical creation story. So there's many things to say about this. They also each relate to the Kabbalistic tree of life. Like the first 1,000 years was chesed, or loving kindness, and that's why people lived very long. The second 1,000 years was gevura, or hardship, and that's why the flood occurred in that time. The third 1,000 years were Tiferet, which is beauty, and I believe that's when the temple was built. The next 1,000 was Netzach, which is endurance, and that's when the let's see, I think that's 02. Anyway, I have this all written down somewhere, but each of the 1,000 years corresponds to another aspect of the Kabbalistic tree of life. The seven sfirot, beginning from Chesed, loving kindness, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Now we're in Yesod, which has a lot of different associations with it. The way to sort of sail free or sail safe in the period of Yesod is to cling to someone who can show the way, like a tzaddik, because this period is considered so crazy that we're sent sort of enlightened beings who can help us navigate, and that also relates to the enlightened being within oneself. So, in any case, we're now in the sixth day, and we're sort of more than 3/4 through the sixth day. So 1990 corresponded to noon on the sixth day, and another important milestone on the sixth day is noon. I'll just read out a little explanation of this noon mark. In the Jewish tradition, the Sabbath is the purpose of the entire week, and preparations begin as early as Wednesday, with some traditions directing followers to think and plan for the Sabbath as early as Sunday. Now, I'll just interject that the seventh day or seventh millennium signifies the Sabbath day or the Messianic era, the return of the Golden Age. So when we talk about preparing for the Sabbath, we're really talking about preparing for the Messianic era and the relationship between exile and redemption, the days of the week, and the Messianic era, the days of the week and the Sabbath, history inside of time and history beyond time. So really, this brings us to something amazing about Jewish law, which it's my passion that the Jewish people realize and that the world realize about the Jewish people, which is that all of Jewish practice is really a metaphor, and that this doesn't necessarily mean, you don't have to observe anything. Let's just sort of like ascend to a level where everything is symbolic, because we are still in a physical world, even though you could say some of us might be at a level where we're sort of hovering between different dimensions. And it is true that once we're in the Messianic era, the commandments and observance will have a completely different relationship with them. So it's my belief that sort of one's relationship to the commandments is deeply related to one's relationship to the physical world and to 3D reality. So the commandments provides a way to be in 3D reality and yet not be enslaved by it. But if you're already sort of operating in a 5D reality, then you want to make sure you're tapping into the wisdom of the commandments on a level that you're at, which may include observance and surely should include the deepest secrets inside of them. And in any case, for those taking interest in observance, sort of from an external perspective, wondering, what are all these laws? That the laws are a code for understanding this relationship between time and outside of time. So if one were to sort of like take a movie of, a Hasidic Orthodox family beginning on Saturday night when the Sabbath ends, and the ritual of fire and spices and wine and the songs and the escorting of the Sabbath queen, and taking this through midnight, through the morning, Sunday morning. In Israel, Sunday morning is the first day of the week. I guess here you get another little buffer. But let's say Monday morning, the height of immersion in the physical world. But the truth is that in some communities, already on Sunday or Monday, one begins making plans for the Sabbath. Would you like to come over? Can we do dinner this week? So the idea is that the week is sort of like always in service of the Sabbath. And this model of the subservience of the material element of creation to the spiritual element is one step in understanding what the purpose of this world is. But really it goes further, because we're not just talking about making all of material reality serve the spiritual. We're talking about uplifting everything in reality to reflect its true spiritual nature. So this was the big message of the Baal Shem Tov, who revealed himself in the year 1740, which interestingly enough was dawn on the sixth day. You could really say the midpoint of the sixth millennium. And the teaching that came out then, which some say was sort of like the spiritual backwiring of the Industrial Revolution, was that everything contains sparks of holiness. And the way to hasten the redemption and step into the limitlessness that we really are, and reveal the limitlessness that this world really is, the fact that this entire world is God, is not through sort of sidelining what's material and limited, God forbid, but through revealing the limitlessness in what appeared a second ago to be limited. So I actually think that we're nearing that point where to even say the word limited is becoming a word that's going to make our whole system sort of squirm. Where maybe it's that enough people are waking up that there's certain truths that we can acknowledge collectively. And so really the idea is that once we've sort of harvested and collected the sparks of limitlessness in all of these things around us, it's both an incremental process towards, doing this in enough places and enough corners of reality until the light is revealed everywhere. But it's also a nonlinear process where we begin tapping into the very consciousness that makes up the Messianic era. We begin tapping into the consciousness of limitlessness and inhabiting that more and more. Okay, it looks like this is going to be end of video 1. Thanks for listening.